Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another broadcast of In the Trenches. I'm excited to sit down today with Antonio Centeno, the founder of Real Men, Real Style. In today's conversation, we go behind the scenes of Real Men, Real Style, how Antonio got a start, how he's grown that platform to over 1 million subscribers, and how he routinely gets hundreds of thousands of views on his videos each and every month. My big takeaway from today's conversation is really just how Antonio shows up to work in life. He really is a family man, has great values, and is just a great entrepreneur and business owner as well. Very analytical, but can also show up and do the sales and marketing and really excels at that as well. And I consider myself blessed to know Antonio because it was actually Antonio, one of the first people I connected with, that helped me get my start online. He was one of the first people I collaborated with. In fact, it was as I was transitioning out of the Army that I connected with Antonio, and we had this great conversation about how the actual transition system for veterans who are looking to start a business is kind of broken. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all that just doesn't really fit anyone at all. And so we saw this opportunity, and Antonio, myself, and John Lee Dumas ended up collaborating on a project together called High Speed Low Drag. And that was my first genuine foray into online business and helped me kind of get my chops and learn things from the bottom up of starting a business online, what it takes to market and sell, how to create webinars, how to sell on webinars, how to do effective lead generation, how to run a coaching program, how to create courses, and more. So that experience was phenomenal for me, and I've since stayed good friends with Antonio and John, and they've just been incredible resources, incredible people to know. So I bring all that up for two reasons. One, because I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this conversation, and you'll see some of the questions I asked and how we dive into it in today's conversation hopefully will be really valuable for you. But the second piece is just that I think it's so worthwhile to try to connect with people and build relationships with them and see how you can collaborate with them. And so I don't talk about that a lot, but I do have a book called Collaborate that kind of outlines that process and that structure. And if you're interested in that, go to collaboratebook.net and you can pick that up. And if you're just not sure what you're doing or you're struggling to get traction, I don't think there's a better strategy than working with people who are smarter than you or who are more established or even more successful than you, more experienced. And if you can work with them in some capacity that benefits them, you can benefit from the learning, the experience, and all sorts of other different ways. So I'll leave it at that. And I hope you enjoy today's conversation. So without further ado, let's get to it. So Antonio, the place I want to start is give us a little background on your business, actually how you got started with, we're going to get into Menfluential in just a bit, the conference you're putting together, but Real Men, Real Style, where did that come from? How did that originate?
Sure. My first company, A Tailored Suit, was an online custom clothier, and I created Real Men, Real Style as the marketing arm of that clothier. I knew I needed to get traffic to my website, and taking a step back even before that, it's like I served in the United States Marine Corps, had a great, 5-year career that got stop lost for the trip over to Iraq in 2003. But after I got out late 2003, it was something that I didn't know anything about business, went to business school to teach all this stuff. And my first business, I took all that fancy education, all that stuff, and completely failed. So I ended up, it was bad. I went into bankruptcy with that business. It was tough. But what I did, the silver lining, what I came out of this is I can create content pretty darn well. I had a website called The Art of Manliness that reached out to me, Brett, back in 2008. He said, "You're a good writer. Can you come write for me?" So I said, sure. I believed in his mission, believed in what he stood for, which is to help men become better fathers, husbands, brothers, sons. And that right there kind of showed me the power of, because when I talked to him about some of the numbers and financials, I realized, wow, you can make a healthy 6-figure profit simply by having a website that you allowed ads on or you did promotions. And that's what really Real Men, Real Style and how that came about. And then from that, it was you start interacting with other people in your industry. And I realized I love to hang out with what many people view as my competitors, simply because we get together, we could commiserate about all the problems that only content creators can. I was getting started and had some success on YouTube by that point. And I reached out to another YouTuber. His name's Aaron Marino. He's the largest actually influencer on YouTube in our space. I was larger when it came down to the blog presence. And we didn't know each other too well. So we met up at VidCon and we had a great time and realized the power of actually meeting up. And we decided, I think at that event, that, hey, let's have our own event. And we created the first Menfluential. And I think it was Marine Corps started in Ton Tavern, which we always like to talk about. Good ideas, good things start in a bar. And that's exactly what happened with Menfluential.
So let me ask you this before we get into the actual structure of Menfluential and what you're doing to kind of grow that. I want to ask actually, because you brought it up, was it a tailor suit that went bankrupt? And that was your first business?
That was my first business and is still the holding company that I use for like legal documents and stuff for Real Men Real Style.
So how do you come back from that? Because I don't know. I think to myself, I guess if I had had like a really, I guess my failures were always kind of really small. I look at them and say like they're really small, like the digital product type failures, or little things. And I feel like getting over that or getting past that was like not that difficult. But I feel like if there was if I put like a lot of time and energy into something, a lot of money, and it didn't work out, I'd be really scared or really nervous to try again.
It's all relative because to me, like bankruptcy is really small. I mean, Jefferson, put that there so that you could be absolved of your debts. I did I mean, it's embarrassing, but now I realized, there's a reason it's there. And I took a chance and I went for it. To me, big problems are if your kid has cancer. To me, big problems are and that's, I think, the mentality I always took from the Marine Corps is like, I have my truck, I have a can of beans. When I was single, I was like, I'm good to go. Like, I don't need anything else. Now that I've got a family, I realize, okay, as long as my family is healthy and as long as I can give them opportunity, that to me is what's key. So I'm like, when I talked to my wife, we're going through this, it was tough. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we can go live with my mom back in the trailer in New Mexico. That's not, where I want to go, but we can do it. And my wife, she's hardcore. She grew up, she's former, she's Ukrainian, grew up in Kyiv, and her mom like came to Kyiv with simply one change of clothes, made her way up. My wife has never, money is not, it's nice to have, but the best things in life, as they're free. Second best things, they're pretty darn expensive.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. But I guess I wonder too, like, so your mindset at the time was like, this isn't working, but maybe I can move into the content space here. And you kept, if I understand this correctly, you were doing this full time. And when this one thing didn't work out, you're still doing it full time. You're still like hustling. You're still bootstrapping it, as I understand it. So it's not like you went back and you got a job and then like started maybe a side hustle to get back into it.
Yeah, getting a job was kind of like, I can't even imagine going back to that. I guess that was like, I had burnt the ships and I was pretty much, I'm going to make this work. I don't care what's going to happen. And I think that's the an entrepreneur's mindset is that like, I am going to find a way. Like I will sell everything. Like I will lose my house. Like, I'm checking with my wife and, she realizes this is the path. And when I look at like business, I look at it like baseball. You only have to be batting. If you're batting 400 in baseball, you're pretty darn good. But that does mean 6 out of 10 times you're striking out or you're not getting on base. So, that's good. It's like those happen. You just realize it's a matter of failing fast, of getting those swings in, and you're gonna connect, you're gonna hit if you're brutally honest with yourself. And I was brutally honest that there are just some things I'm really bad at, and there's some things I'm really good at. So let's focus in on what I'm good at, and also find ways to get paid for it. So I started surrounding myself with people that were strong at where I was weak. Sales, I'm not that great. So I've got a sales guy with another company that I created actually out of the conference. It's a media company I have, and he just sells the heck out of everything, and it benefits everything we do. And so that's kind of where I took that.
How long did you go when you made this transition, kind of going more toward the content side of things? Because you obviously have a very successful YouTube channel with 2 million subscribers now, but in the beginning, what was that growth like? Was it slow? How did you make sure that you were on the right track?
Well, I had already been growing it because the first sponsor was, my clothier, a tailored suit. That was my goal, was to get them over to that. But it was something that, to give myself some time, what I did is I realized I needed to have time to focus in on Real Men Real Style. So I took a tailored suit and I cut off about 80% of my customers. Basically, I doubled my prices. And actually, when that happened, it's funny, the business did a lot better. And I actually thought about, well, maybe I should just do this and just go with the higher price point. But I had already kind of decided I wasn't going to go down that path, and that wasn't where I wanted to be. And I immediately worked to get money in. One of the things that really opened my mind was when I was speaking with a friend of mine, and he pointed out, hey, what you're doing for these other companies, basically I was promoting a shoe company for free. And they rewarded me. It took me 6 months because I was still running a tailored suit. It took me 6 months to do this review of a shoe, put it on my YouTube channel, and it sold a whole bunch of shoes. And to reward me, because they had only given me a free pair of shoes, the company sent me immediately another pair of shoes. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I don't have time to be promoting these guys for free. And, my friend Aaron, at the time, he's just like, you need to send him an invoice, $3,000, do it. And I did that. And within like an hour, they paid the invoice. So it was like, and that's almost all very high profit margin on that versus the suits. If I were to sell 3,000 in suits, I'd bet the point I would be lucky to keep a few $100s. That's how bad my margins were on the other company. And so I was like, holy cow, like I don't need to sell as much. And because the margins are so much higher, I can make more money. And that's where it sort of shifted. We also started selling information products as well. We had ebooks and things like that. And again, very high margin. And that's where I started. I think when the lights hit me, it was, I don't have to sell a physical product. I could actually be selling information. I could be selling advertising. And these services, these information products have a much higher margin. And there at the time wasn't really much competition.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And that makes sense. I think the advertising route is tough because you have to be able to get a serious volume to make it worthwhile. But you've done that, and you've done it through content.
Yeah, you've got to be able to show people that you can. I mean, if you're selling, when it comes to Rolexes, if you put out like if you have a watch channel and you specifically stick with Rolexes, or you stick, let's go even to cars. I mean, if I'm getting 1,000 views, and these are real deep car enthusiasts, and you can convince, let's say 5 out of that 1,000 to buy whatever car. I mean, that's probably above, but you would think, if 5 out of 1,000 actually go and look at that car and then 2 buy once they're in the dealership. I mean, that's those videos, even though you're only getting 1,000 views, are worth a lot of money because you are moving a very high ticket item. And so you only need a lot of views if you're like promoting kids' toys, in my opinion. And kids' toys, there's just, because those are, a few bucks that you're making off each toy. But when you go high ticket, and that's where I would advise like anyone is to think about like what you're trying to move and what you're trying to sell. And that's why I love to, occasionally promote bags, or I think anyone that has like a camera channel, those are really profitable electronics, simply because, you're selling something or you're getting people to go buy something that's worth thousands of dollars.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So then what led you to, with Menfluential, it was connecting with Aaron, who I kind of like this story. You mentioned briefly the intro and mentioning Aaron, that you guys teamed up on Menfluential, but how you actually connected, I thought was kind of interesting in the first place. Go into that a little bit. Like, this is
fun. Oh yeah, we hated each other at first. We didn't necessarily hate each other, but we were competitors. And I think he says that he reached out to me first and he was asking to use some like infographics. Apparently I said no. I don't remember this. I'm usually saying yes, but that's what he remembered. And so we just went back and forth, and I looked at what he was doing. I'm like, man, this is a loudmouth Italian. He doesn't know what he's talking about suits. But I'm watching his views accumulate on YouTube while mine are a big zero. So I started creating these videos, and he did inspire me to create my channel because I was just like, I'm going to go beat this guy and give much better information. But what I found is that, like, in many of you guys, if you ever compete at a high level, you find that you're good friends with these competitors when it's all said and done, because these people have suffered and have gone through the pain and have built something similar to you. It's like I can talk to any man that has served. Doesn't matter if you served in the Iraqi army. I've got nothing against you, and we've got a camaraderie here because both of us have served. Even though our countries like have fought. It's just something. Or you go to Vietnam and you hear about these guys. So to me, it's like instant camaraderie. And we were like, let's pull our resources and just have a party, get together. Because I got tired of traveling to all these conferences and meeting these amazing people, but not seeing them anywhere else. And I live in a town of only 1,000 people. So nobody comes to my town. And it was just something, well, how about if I throw the party and call it a conference so I can write it off and just get in the best people? And kind of my guide with this event has always been, Tom, like, I've been to enough conferences that suck. This will not suck, because it's always going to be people first. It's always going to be my job as the owner is to facilitate introductions and to make sure that the people attending this event are treated great, feel that they get value. I find out how to serve them, and I serve them as best I can. And that's why, you've seen me. All I do, I'm running around making introductions, making sure everyone's taken care of. Like, it's not me sitting up, like, just watching this thing. It's about actually realizing that people come here and they want to get value. And that's what I want to bring to them.
Yeah, I'm grateful that I got to speak at this year's 2018's event. And I thought it was interesting because I've been to a lot of conferences. Yours was definitely the best dressed I've been to. And I had to reconsider what I was wearing for it. But the second thing was, I thought it was kind of an interesting dynamic, because you definitely have your entrepreneurs that come, but then you have a big group of men primarily that are kind of focused on the fashion. Then you have like your fashion kind of focused entrepreneurs too. It was an eclectic mix. What's your thoughts on this and how you guys have attracted this group?
Yeah, the initial idea was to call it StyleCon, and that's where it was the first, I think, 4 years. But what we realized is what we like to talk. Style was, it's men's lifestyle in general that we started with and we've attracted, but now we've branched into fitness. We've going to men's mental health. It is male focused, and that's something I didn't see out there. there and make sense with my brands and with the companies we surround ourselves with. But there are three primarily type of people that we attract, and that is the creator. So if you've got a YouTube channel, an Instagram, you're growing, if you're a podcaster, then it would make sense, especially if you're in the men's lifestyle space or your primary demographic is men. It makes sense to come to this because it's about interacting with those other creators. Then you've got the business owners, and these guys oftentimes do own companies that sell specifically to men, from Chassis, which makes the best ball powder out there on the market, to companies that are selling razor blades, to companies that are selling men's clothing, men's suits. So that is primarily, but this year we're trying to get bodybuilding.com as the main sponsor of the event. So we're also bringing in lifestyle, which is fitness. You've got the grooming, you've got the style, but you've also got the business acumen and that improvement right there. And then finally, we've got the super fan. And this is a term of endearment we've got for our guys that follow our channels, love what we put out. They consume not only the content, but the companies that we talk about. And they just want to come out and shake hands with these influencers, and they absolutely love it. Like Thomas Frank, you met him. I mean, great guy. And he specifically creates content for, I think, students that are wanting to improve and optimize themselves, young men and women. He's got a huge, female following that simply want to be the best college students they can be. So guys like that, or you've got, maybe AJ, over at the Art of Charm, which is about helping men, improve their social skills. Then you've got Matt Reynolds, he's like Starting Strength, online coaching. And those guys have been working with, just some of the top, and these are weightlifters, and they're all about strength. And so you get that group together. And I think what binds us, what brings us together is that we're all looking to improve ourselves. And it's interesting, the dynamic that we are able to create in a mostly male environment. Not that we encourage women to attend. It's just simply that because of the nature of what we talk about and where we're focused, it's just mostly a male audience.
And so your intention originally then was, hey, let's get together. Let's maybe bring the conference to us instead of going to these conferences so we can start bringing the interesting people and connecting with them. It obviously got off to a successful start. You did it again, it grew. You did it again, it grew. You're now at a point where I think this next year's tickets for 2019 are already sold out or pretty close to it or something like that, right? I mean,
they're coming in on that, but it has been something that, we're still over 150 days out from the event. I don't know when this goes live, it'll definitely be less. And my goal is to have it sold out, a month, 2 months before. So we've got a countdown timer that I'm always looking at, and I want to add a lot of value. There is value. We've got a private Facebook group that guys can go in. But this year, what we're doing different is we've got a virtual ticket. And I'm really excited about that and we made it at a price that's a no-brainer. I think right now it's, we've got it for $20. And I mean, the idea is that, okay, you can't make it, then you have no excuse not to be there and to hang out with us, because you just grab a virtual ticket and we're going to broadcast the thing. We're actually going to interact and reach out to the people that are watching us live. And the goal there at that price point, again, is it's not really to make money. I mean, that's a nice thing if we do, but it is something that I just simply want to have impact. I want to reach more people and be able to get them influential out there to anyone that wants to access it.
And so I'm curious, like, is the $20 then, because it's not at a price point where it's like super expensive, like you mentioned, it doesn't seem like it would be a huge income generator, but it's also not zero. So is it mostly just like that just covers your expenses for like, honestly, like for like.
No, it doesn't even cover the expenses. I mean, unless for me to, do the live broadcast and stuff is like $10,000. So to the level we're doing it. So I'm going to have to sell a lot of those to make up for, I got my Texas math, so I'm not going to do the numbers on that quick, but I am going to say, and that, that's something that we just break even. That's not usually the goal of a business. You want to make money. It's about impact. In fact, we were looking to charge like $300 for the virtual ticket. I see businesses do it all the time, hundreds of dollars for those virtual tickets. But to me, it was kind of actually a little bit of YouTube. I saw the Logan Paul KSI fight. They charged $7 for access. And that was kind of our thought, is like, this is lunch. And if it's not worth it to you, like, because I didn't want it to be free. Free people, at least my thoughts are, they take advantage of free, or you don't value free. But if there's a little bit of a cost, it's a little bit of a pain point. Like, just somebody on my team came back to me. He wanted to join a mastermind. He was wondering if the company could cover it. And my thing is like, I'll cover half. It's like, you got to have skin in the game. If you don't have skin in the game, then you've got no vested interest, and you do it for 2 months and you get a lot of value from it. I'll help you continue at 75%.
I like that. I've never thought about that with employees, but coming back to this, I thought that was interesting, an interesting move to do it that low, at that price point so low, but also not free. So that was purposeful. It's not necessarily, hopefully it breaks even, or maybe you guys come up net positive. But so for you, it was exposure, but it sounds like not just exposure or reach per se, but of the right people, which is people that would actually pay $20 to view something like this, which isn't everybody.
Yeah. That's like stay in Friday night and just don't buy, simply just don't buy 2 beers and the gas it costs you to go to the bar, or whatever it is. If you're willing, that's what you're giving up. So to me, it's a no-brainer. If we've got someone listening and they're at a base over in Italy, or they're over in London and they've been a fan, it's like there's no excuse for you not to get this, because you're going to get the value simply by watching, by watching one of those presentations. Boom, you've got more value. And I do feel that when you watch it, you've paid for it, you're going to be more intent on really taking value from it.
And I think when I was talking to you last, so you guys haven't sold out the tickets just yet, but I'm sure you will. When this goes live, hopefully there'll be some left. So definitely check it out if you're listening to this. But my question is this: I think you had said you were going to cap it though at the same number of people that it was this past year. So why that decision? Why to cap it? Why not expand it? What's the thought process for you?
Well, the virtual ticket, like right now we're aiming, that we don't have to put a cap on, but I am, right now I've got that $20. I'm thinking the first, I'll go back and I'll check the numbers on that, but it is something, you want to get people to take action on it and not wait around forever. But the regular ticket is just simply the size of the event place. I mean, you've been in there and you saw we pretty much packed it last year, and we had about 400, just over 400 in there counting, 450 counting all the staff and everyone else. But attendees, I really want, and once you get past a certain point, like I was out at Social Media Marketing World, and I think Michael Stelzner runs an amazing event there. But the problem is you've got 4,000, 5,000 people there, and there's no way that you can meet and talk to everybody. It's very difficult for anyone even to get a hold of Michael. I mean, I was a speaker, so I got to spend time with him, and we're both from Wisconsin. So it's like, I got a little bit of access there, but I ran into one of my friends, John Loomer, and, we went to undergrad together, and I've known him for years, big Facebook guy. And I only happened to run into him, and I didn't even know he was speaking there. It's that big. And what I want is for someone to be able to come to my event, and that the price of it is well below most business conferences. I've been to conferences, it's like $2,000 a ticket. This is a fraction of that. So I wanted it to be at a price that anybody could save up and get there. We had guys come in from India last year, but it is something that it's enough that you're going to really feel you've committed to it. But yeah, the 400, 450, I find it's intimate enough that I'm able to shake everyone's hand over a 2-day period.
That's awesome. So when you structure this, why, you do your primary business, we'll say, or one aspect of it is the YouTube channel. I think it's one of the things you're most well known for. Obviously there's other aspects to your business, but you run a YouTube channel that's very successful, millions of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of views on your videos. And so I know advertising is a big thing that you can do, sponsorships and things like that. What's the value of doing an in-person event like this, especially when, say, the online component of what you're doing is relatively successful? And how did you weigh the pros and cons of starting an in-person event in spite of the fact that maybe your online stuff is already doing well? Because I think maybe the consideration would be well, maybe shouldn't I just keep putting more effort and energy into this online component, the sponsorship, the ads, versus maybe splitting my time to go do an in-person event? What's your thought process on that, and how's that panned out?
So I do believe, yes, I make a lot more money with my company, Real Men, Real Style, and my media company now that actually is called Menfluential Media. We renamed the conference after the media company. So those two businesses, they make me money. I run this thing like a nonprofit, because what I do with a lot of the money is I cover rooms for my speakers. It's something I didn't see a lot of conferences. Again, I've been to conferences, I've spoken at conferences that suck. And to me, it's I always thought that, wait a minute, I'm flying out here on my own dime, and I'm putting myself up in my own hotel on my own dime. So for anyone that's a returning speaker, I always try to cover as much as I can. And this year we should even have money to be able to give our speakers basically flight credits and things like that. And that's what I get excited. But the reason I do it is because what's interesting, the internet, I think, has made us more lonely. We spend so much time just interacting and talking with people, but we don't have that true human interaction. We meet somebody, but we don't know how tall they are. We have business relationships, but we don't even know how that person, the little idiosyncrasies, or, how they, when you're next to them, they're always clicking a pen, or they're doing. And to me, that is, I wanted to have impact true impact. I mean, I do feel that the relationships I build here and the friendships I've made, like if I were to walk out and get hit by a bus, I feel that there are people relationships I've made here, like these guys are going to fly out for my funeral. And this may sound a little bit morbid, but it's the idea of planning things with the end in mind. And for me, I feel a lot of men go through life and their best friends are the ones they made in college and in high school. And they lose they lose relationships. And so they, when you hear statistically, when a man's wife dies and he's, in his 60s or 70s, that he dies usually a few months afterwards because of loneliness and he has no relationship. He doesn't have that network. Women have that. So part of my idea what this was a place for guys where they can actually build and nurture some of these real relationships. So selfishly, that's why one of the reasons I'm doing it. So, and a lot of the speakers and the way I evolved the conference, again, I call it conference. It's really a party. It's like, I get my friends up there to speak, it's like, you look at I've watched Jeremy Fragrance, we've hung out multiple places. We were just in London. I went to Germany, hung out with him and his mom for a couple of days. This guy just released, or he's got a new fragrance coming out. And the guy it's just amazing where he's going in the fragrance world. He's working with one of the top perfumers in the world now to develop his fragrances. And to see Jose go from just this little guy that, was doing nothing. He was just this skinny Mexican kid that was filming this stuff to, he's now developed out and he's running a 7-figure business. And I just am proud that I'm a part of the journey with these guys. And I've got, so everyone I'm looking on here, these are my friends. These are guys that, Pete Sveen over at DIY Pete, just great friend. He shows up in a lumberjack shirt. It's like, Pete is not, let's just face it, we love the guy, but he's not a style guy. I get it. But he's still, I found a way to make him fit. And I will evolve my own conference to accommodate my friends and people that I think can offer value to the audience.
So let me ask you two final questions on this point. I'm curious, how did you hustle to get your first few sales of the tickets when you first started this?
I called everybody. I just call people and I think phone sales are something that's a lost art, or you need to be doing more of it. Everyone wants to sell with a sales page. And to me, it's I'm looking across, it's like, oh, I got to confirm with Benny Lewis. I'll just send him a quick text, and text is his preferred method. Or Matt Reynolds. Matt Reynolds sends me an email question and I immediately just dial him back and talk to him on the phone, because I know Matt he's a Missouri boy, that he likes things a little bit old fashioned. He was actually formerly a teacher before he got into strength training. Now he's built a multi-million-dollar business and is able to take vacations with his family, and he's homeschooling his kids. I know this stuff because they're my friends and I care about them. And I just, again, to me, it's about authenticity and you being able to have these people that hey, I'd like to think that if the shit hit the fan and you need to get out of Colorado or something's going on, that you think, I could call Antonio and they'll put me up at his house. Sure, why not? And it's I feel that we had that when we were in the service, and I want to continue to have that going forward and help maybe facilitate it for guys that weren't able to do it, or maybe aren't thinking about it and don't realize that it matters, especially when life comes up and just smacks you upside the face.
And you're calling people who are and do you have a process for this? It's email us, and then you have how do you?
Anytime I've got dead time, I've always got a list of contacts, and I'm always calling people with any dead time and leaving quick messages. Kind of, some people may call it, pestering, but if you're on my list, yeah, it's just fun to go back and forth with people.
But for something like this, I'm really curious, because I think that's great. But it's so you say, if you're on my list, how does somebody get on that list for you? Is it something you're doing proactively online, or is it how do you do you have people submit their phone numbers and you give them a call, or how does that process?
I sort of have a system. I have 3 assistants and it does upset me whenever they treat someone that's a friend of mine like just a non-friend. But pretty much I just collect it. I've got everyone's pretty much in here. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I wish I had a very super good system, but I think just really building up true friendships and then going through and calling people is, yeah.
You do it every day. You'll take out and you'll call somebody or text somebody.
Not every day. There are certain days that it's a lot easier just to go through, but people have dead time. I try to reserve it to the end of the day unless I really need to get a hold of people. But it's like, yeah, I'm just going through looking at everyone here, and I ask them for their number and I call them. But I also travel to people. I mean, I really think like Emil and Rasmus, they're over at Slick Hair TV. They're over in, where is it? Denmark. I mean, I was like, hey, I'm in Ukraine. I'll just come over. I mean, we had to fly into Germany, but I'm in Germany. Okay, I'll see Jeremy. So I hung out with Jeremy over at Jeremy Fragrance. Then I took, the train. It was 12 hours up to Denmark. And I'm like, it's like I slept on the train. It's like, yeah, you're not sleeping in a hotel bed, but I'll do that for my friends, and they're my friends. And I just enjoy building up this gang of guys. I mean, anytime you do anything, I mean, you're not going to go. I mean, what's more powerful, an individual lone wolf soldier, or I mean, maybe Rambo, but compared with a whole company or a whole battalion. I mean, all of a sudden you got a battalion of guys that are motivated. I mean, you're just going to be able to accomplish amazing things.
Okay, so let me ask you this final question then. On vendors, this is another thing people struggle with in-person events. How'd you guys land your first few vendors, or not vendors, but sponsors, we'll say?
They're my friends. Again, you just simply like, friends want to help friends. And it's like Mike over at Rib T. It's like, hey man, like we're doing this. He's like, I want in. Dave over at, the guys over at David Free over at Anson Belt and Buckle. He's belt I'm wearing right now. It's like, Antonio, you've done so much for us, because they're my friends, and I maintain these deep relationships. And it's like, let us know, we'll be there. First year, we gave them discounts on, like, because they were like, we got to see. But after that, they were sold. And when they realized how much we cared about them, how much we tried to bring them in, and we've helped Anson Belt and Buckle become, a 7-figure business in other means. And so it all works together. And again, I built relationships, and it was just simply a matter of saying, hey, Alex over at Del Smolci, just, hey, you want to come out and sponsor? Everyone's like a $40-50 million company. For him, it's like, no, sure. And he sends all his girls. He's got just a whole marketing team that he ends up sending out to us, and he pops in himself because we've got this relationship. And of course, there is business value there, but I do feel that people want to do business with not only those that are going to benefit them, but also people they like and trust.
Wow. Well, I think that can be the summary of today's conversation, honestly, is the relationship piece. And that seems like that's like absolutely your focus. Like everything we talked about, it kind of came back to relationships. It's kind of interesting. We didn't even choreograph this or pre-plan this. That's just kind of interesting to see. That's awesome. Well, Antonio, where can people reach out to find you, connect with you, learn more about you?
Yeah, just type in, if they want to learn about the conference, just type in Menfluential Conference to the Google. The Google will send you. Yeah. Now, but if you want to find me, just type in Antonio Centeno or Real Men Real Style. You'll find me. I've got a contact form, which I'm always proud to send people through, because it was like featured in the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. And it's just fun. And again, it's if I can serve, if I can be of value, and if anyone wants to go to a conference that they get to write off, but really is a party, make sure to check out Menfluential.
Another way to find you is just searching what's the difference between a sports coat and a blazer. I searched that and I found your video right at the top, Antonio. So there you go.
How to roll your shirt sleeves, how to tuck in your shirt. I got you. You'll find my videos.
I love it. Well, Antonio, thank you for being on In the Trenches.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
And that wraps up another broadcast of In the Trenches. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please do me a favor and go to tomworkes.com/iTunes. That's TOMMORKES.com/iTunes and leave a rating and review for In the Trenches. Not only do I read and appreciate every review, but it helps spread the word of this podcast and allows me to continue to get on great guests. So thank you for your support, and I'll catch you on the next